Good day, fellow Neverwinter players. So today I'm just going to go over two quick builds for the Wizard in Neverwinter. So one of the things I'm not going to talk about today, I'm not going to talk about equipment or boons or companions or mounts and insignia bonuses. I'm just going to get into the nuts and bolts of the powers on the Wizard. This is again, this is aimed at mid to high level players. Although a beginner could actually get quite a bit out of this as well. If you want a really in-depth look at the Wizard, you really should read Sharp Edge's guide. Though I admit it's a bit of a heavy read. So first off, the first build I'm going to show you is the Arcanist. It's an Arcanist single target loadout. So this build is designed and the rotation's designed for single target play. So against bosses and stuff like that. Another thing I am going to kind of call out here, at this point in time with Mod 18, the Thaumaturge side, the Thaumaturge Paragon on the Wizard is basically dead in the water for endgame play. You can certainly run a Thaumaturge if you want, but it's severely underperforming at this point in time, and changes made coming into Mod 18 have actually made it perform worse. So if at all possible to ease some of the pain that you may have with groups and stuff, you may want to not run the Thaumaturge. Okay, so the single target build, your go-to at will is going to be Ray of Frost, though you are going to mix in Stormpillar into your rotation on occasion, and it's because it's really all about maintaining stacks of arcane mastery. So one of the things that Stormpillar does is it will increase, it refreshes your stacks of Arcane Mastery and Chill if you charge it up past 50%. So you hold down the button, it charges it up to past 50%, you let it go, and then you continue on with the rest of your rotation. From an encounter powers perspective, if you're the only wizard in the group, you're definitely going to run Ray of Enfeeblement, and as well as Disintegrate, Repel, and Entangling Force. Repel and Entangling Force are both really hard-hitting encounters. They end up doing a lot of damage in the dungeon, and of course, Disintegrate's kind of got the roll the dice risk to it. If you're with another wizard, only one of you needs to run Ray of Enfeeblement on the Mastery tab. Otherwise, the other person can then run Imprisonment instead. So Imprisonment actually ends up being a better personal buff, but someone in the party should be running Ray of Enfeeblement. From a daily power perspective, you're only going to run one daily. You're not going to use any other daily other than this. You're going to use Arcane Empowerment. This really gives you some burst mechanisms. It increases your encounter power damage. And then puts your stuff on rapid fire cooldown. It's a really awesome daily, and you want to pop that as often as possible. From a class feature perspective, you're going to run Chilling Presence. So in the past we would have run Arcane Power Field, but that's been nerfed into the ground. It's really not viable anymore for endgame content, or I should say competitive with using Chilling Presence. And even that's getting a little bit of a nerf on the Arcanist Wizard with the next mod, but it's not enough of a nerf to not use it. And then, of course, use Storm Spell. Storm Spell is kind of the Arcanist bread and butter class feature. It comprises a good chunk of your damage as an Arcanist Wizard, and you should have it slotted. So, from a feat choice perspective, I'm going to walk through each of these. So, starting with Spell Twisting, for single target and AoE, you're going to be using Spell Twisting. You're definitely going to be using Snap Freeze. So again, while you're using that Ray of Frost, you're doing more damage. It's another 40 magnitude every time you're applying Chill, right? This next column, the middle column here, this one's a little more controversial. I'm a fan of chaos magic. But I'm going to say this, Iced Lightning, because of, a Storm Spell, is actually also a very solid option. Really, this is kind of dealer's choice on this one. Pick whichever one you want to go with. It's not going to make that much of a difference. They both have upsides, and they both have some minor downsides. Chaos Magic is very chance oriented. Again, you only have a 10% chance to get one of these, these buffs essentially. Whereas with Ice Lightning, every time you're doing storm spell damage, it's going to be hitting 10% harder, which is kind of nice. On the next column, so you got a choice between Nightmare, Wizardry, and Striking Advantage. If you're with a good group, you're against a boss, players are going to be positioning for combat advantage, which in that case makes Striking Advantage a better choice. If you're in a scenario where you're not in a good group, they're not flanking, you're not getting combat advantage on the target, then you should run Nightmare Wizardry, which then gives you a chance of just granting yourself combat advantage via your crit strikes. And then on the final column, you're going to run a Step Above Mastery. So this is the must-have for the single target. This allows you to stack your Arcane Mastery stacks up to 10 times and grants bonus damage on that. This is also getting a nerf in the next mod, how this works, but it's still fantastic. And it combines really well in with Arcane Empowerment. So from just a rotation perspective, you're going to start off with Rave Enfeeblement, and then mix in your encounter powers. If you've got a long cooldown on all your encounter powers, just throw a quick Storm Pillar to refresh your stacks of Arcane Mastery to make sure they don't go away. Start putting Chill on the target. Alternatively, you can start putting Chill on the target right away and then go into your encounter power rotation. And of course, use your Arcane Empowerment daily as often as possible, but of course use it wisely. So if you know there's an interrupt coming and you're not going to have time to fully leverage this, don't use it, because it does burn all of your AP on the wizard. So I'm going to switch over to an Arcanist AoE loadout. This one's got a slightly different approach. You can see there's some different feat selections down here, and again, class feature selections and different powers. So from a at-will perspective, it's still going to be Ray of Frost, and that's because you're going to be using Snap Freeze down below, and I still use Storm Pillar again, just refresh chill stacks, but generally speaking, in trash mob scenarios, you're burning the stuff so fast that you're really not going to take full advantage of that Storm Pillar. So it's kind of a place filler that if I want to throw that down in, because it does do, kind of a dot type effect. So from a rotation perspective, again, think about it. Drop Rave Enfeeblement on the biggest bad in the mob group, pop into the group, drop Icy Terrain, then use, like say your Lightning Bolt, and then finish it off with Steal Time. And then use your At-Will a little bit, and then kind of rinse and repeat. Your go-to daily for trash mobs is going to be Oppressive Force. You're really not going to use Arcane Empowerment in this scenario on your AoEs, so you're just going to go for that Oppressive Force. From a class feature perspective, and I'm going to explain my thoughts behind this, and again, you're free to make some changes on your class features. Again, Storm Spell stays on. That is literally your best class feature on an Arcanist Wizard, and I wouldn't go home without it. But I actually choose to go with Evocation instead of Chilling Presence. So nearly all of in fact, everything but Rave Enfeeblement that I'm using from an encounter perspective is an AoE. So my Icy Terrain, my Lightning Bolt, and Steal Time are all AoE powers. I'm going to increase the damage of those by 5%. What I found in a lot of trash mob scenarios is you don't have enough time to really take advantage of the damage increase you get on Chilling Presence, so you're really not going to see trash mobs with full stacks of chill that ends up matching that damage increase. So in this case, Evocation I think is a better selection. Staying again with Spell Twisting, and then of course staying with Snap Freeze. And again, not only am I applying chill through Icy Terrain, but I'll be applying chill through my daily. So I'm just, every time I'm applying chill, I'm doing a 40 magnitude hit. In this one, I think Ice Lightning and Chaos Magic. Stormspell's still going to do a good chunk of your damage. And you also have Lightning Bolt mixed into your encounter rotation. But I still really like kind of that chance and the upside on the Chaos Magic, so I stick with that. If you're going to be running Trash Mod scenarios, you're probably not necessarily going to be getting as much combat advantage as you would running in a solid group, because you're probably going to be running a lot more solo play and stuff like that. And sometimes groups, through dungeons aren't very well organized, so I find that Night Wizardry works really well in this scenario to, again, give myself combat advantage, which is a pretty good damage increase. And then I actually run Elemental Reinforcement. So this one ends up being about a 10% damage bonus. Looking at my rotation, I'm using an Arcane Power, then I'm using a Chill Power, then I'm using a Lightning Power, and then I'm using an Arcane Power, and then I'm using, an Ice Power again, and then an Arcane. So I'm never repeating over and over the same element, which allows me to keep this up at that 10% bonus damage. Now, that being said, I'm going to call this out right now. The Wizard is not very good in AoE. There are other classes that are much better than in AoE damage, but if you have the stats to support it, you'll still be able to make it through AoE fights just fine. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a fantastic day.